Oh, you guys are not going to believe the day I had. I mean, you literally cannot write this stuff, which is ironic, because that's exactly what I'm doing now. But seriously, less than 6 hours ago, I was standing in the middle of one of my restaurants, and I saw something that just snapped me back to reality. A reality so ugly and unjust it made my blood boil. Picture this: I walked into my own flagship establishment, and the Copper Kettle, and found one of my waitresses, a brilliant young woman, standing by the dish station, her shoulders shaking, completely broken, just silent tears streaming down her face. And the reason why, it wasn't because of a difficult customer, or a spilled tray, or a bad tip. It was because a monster I had foolishly trusted to run the place, the manager, a man named Victor. I'd hired him myself, a charismatic, silver-tongued guy I thought was a shark in a good way, a true professional. What followed was a confrontation that ended his career and fundamentally changed how I run my entire company. But the question I keep asking myself, even now, with the dust settled, was I too harsh? Did I go too far? Tell me, if you were the CEO, watching someone you hired dismantle the spirit of your business, would you have done exactly what I did, or would you have shown a mercy that I just couldn't find in myself? I suppose I should start at the beginning, explain who I am and why I was walking into my own restaurant dressed like a construction consultant. My name is Alex, and I am the founder and CEO of Aether Hospitality, a small but quickly growing restaurant group. The Copper Kettle was my first baby, the concept I poured my entire savings and 3 years of my life into. When you're a CEO, you get disconnected. You deal with investor calls, supply chain logistics, and long-term expansion plans. You stop seeing the day-to-day grind, the real heart of the business, which is the kitchen staff, the servers, and the hosts. To combat this, and frankly because I was starting to feel a little too comfortable in my corner office, I decided to initiate what I called Operation Ground Up. This was a personal, undercover mission. I wanted to spend a day at each of my 5 locations, dressed in incognito workwear, just observing, bussing tables, listening, seeing what the employee experience was actually like without the corporate filter. The Copper Kettle was first up. I told everyone in my corporate office I was on a 2-day strategic retreat. I wore a cheap polo shirt, a slightly too big pair of work boots, and a fake ID badge that read, Alex Miller, Facilities Audit. I even grew out some terrible just for effect. I was supposed to be a nobody, a guy with a clipboard no one would pay attention to. And for the first 4 hours, it worked perfectly. I shadowed the kitchen prep crew, helped a busser clear tables, and even spent 30 minutes fixing a squeaky hinge on the walk-in cooler door. Everyone was great. The food looked fantastic, the customers seemed happy, and the place had that beautiful, chaotic rhythm of a successful restaurant. I was actually feeling pretty smug about my management team. Then I met Maria. Maria was one of those rare people who just radiates a bright, quiet competence. She was maybe 23, fast on her feet, and had this genuine, easy smile for every customer. I saw her handle a complicated 8-top reservation with absolute grace, smoothing over a small mistake in their order before the manager, Victor, even noticed. I had slipped into a corner of the kitchen, pretending to log equipment inefficiencies on my phone, when I heard this low, guttural roar from the back office. It was Victor. He had this way of making his voice sound like a velvet hammer. Quiet enough not to alarm the dining room, but loud enough to convey absolute menace to anyone nearby. He had just pulled Maria into the office. I couldn't make out the words at first, but the tone was unmistakable, pure, distilled cruelty. I felt this immediate, hot wave of unease. I was just supposed to be observing, remember, not interfering, but this was more than just a manager dressing down an employee. It felt personal. Then Maria walked out of the office. Her face was chalk white, eyes wide, but she quickly masked it, putting on that professional, customer service face. I thought, okay, maybe a rough day. I'll make a note of it. I went back to my pretend audit. About an hour later, I was making my way past the dish pit, where the noise and steam usually masked everything. And that's when I saw her. Maria was bent over, pretending to wipe down a perfectly clean stainless steel counter, and she was crying. Silent, desperate sobs. The kind that you try to hold in your chest but shake your whole body. I put my clipboard down. I completely dropped the act. I just walked up to her, placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, and in the kindest voice I could muster said, Hey, what's wrong? What did Victor say to you? She flinched violently, like I'd burned her, and spun around, tears and fear in her eyes. Oh, Mr. Miller, I'm fine, sir, just a little stressed. It's nothing, really, I'm sorry. She was trying to smile, but it looked like a mask of pain. I realized in that moment that she was terrified of me, a facilities audit guy. That's how much power this Victor had, that an innocent employee was scared to talk to a fake maintenance worker. I looked her straight in the eye, and I did something impulsive, something completely against the rules of my little game. I pulled out my actual wallet, not the cheap one with the fake ID, and showed her my corporate identification card, my CEO card. "Maria," I said softly, "my name isn't Alex Miller. It's Alex S. Sterling. I own the company. Now, tell me exactly what Victor did. You have my word. You are safe." Her jaw dropped. The tears stopped immediately, replaced by pure, stunned shock. She looked at the ID, then back at me, the guy in the cheap polo. What she told me next unspooled a pattern of abusive behavior that spanned months, and it was so much worse than I could have imagined. Victor wasn't just a tough boss, he was a genuine, textbook bully and a predator. He was systematically cutting her shifts, assigning her the worst sections, deliberately giving her bad reviews on the internal system, and constantly threatening to fire her, all because she had politely but firmly rejected his repeated, inappropriate advances. He wasn't just harassing her, he was actively destroying her ability to earn a living, because she wouldn't date him. He had just pulled her into the office to tell her, falsely, that a customer had complained about her, and that this was her final warning, implying she knew exactly how to make the final warning go away. Maria was a single mother. She was working 2 jobs to pay for her night classes. This job was her lifeline, and this monster was cutting the rope. My blood didn't just boil, it turned to ice. I felt this crushing weight of responsibility. I had put this man in a position of power over people like Maria. I had failed her. I failed all of them. So that's the situation I was in. I was no longer an undercover CEO. I was an exposed target of an immediate, intense moral dilemma. I had proof, just Maria's tearful testimony, but it was enough for me. My gut screamed for immediate, public justice. My corporate training told me I had to be careful, go through HR protocols, and document everything, which would take days, maybe weeks, during which Victor would still be here, still preying on people, still breathing the air of my establishment. Before I tell you exactly what happened next, and how I decided to handle Victor, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have kept your cool and played the corporate game? Or would you have walked straight into that dining room, and ended him right then and there? Damn the consequences. I truly want to know. I made my decision in about 30 seconds. Protocol be damned. This wasn't a business decision, it was a character test. I told Maria to stay put, to take a minute, and to know that everything was going to be fine. I walked out of the kitchen, took off my fake ID badge, and ripped the label off my cheap polo shirt. I walked with purpose, straight into the main dining room, which was about 75% full with the evening rush just starting. I saw Victor leaning over a table of 4, smooth, talking them about the wine list, his whole demeanor oozing fake, effortless charm. The kind of charm that masks a total void of character. I walked up behind him, quietly, and cleared my throat. When he turned, his eyes glazed over me. "The facilities guy Swillix. I'm busy. Did you find that wrench yet?" he asked, not even bothering to look away from the customers. The customers were now looking at me. I leaned in, just close enough so that only he could hear me at first, and my voice was low, absolutely flat and deadly. "Victor," I said, "you are done." His smile flickered. He laughed, a high, nervous sound. "What? Is this a joke? Get back to work before I write you up." That was the last mistake he ever made at my company. I straightened up, put my hands behind my back, and raised my voice so it carried clearly over the pleasant clatter of silverware and quiet music. "My name is Alex Sterling. I am the CEO of Aether Hospitality. And Victor, you are no longer an employee of this company." The whole dining room went silent. You could literally hear the music skipping. Victor's face went from dismissive to utterly panic. The blood drained out of it so fast he looked like a ghost. He tried to save face, stammering, "Alex, what the hell are you doing? This is insubordination. I'll call the police." I cut him off, my voice steady and firm. "You won't be calling anyone, Victor. Your company phone is now disconnected. Your keys are already being disabled. You were entrusted with a position of leadership, and you abused it. You victimized a decent, hard-working member of my team, Maria, by threatening her livelihood for rejecting your inappropriate advances. That is not just unethical, it is illegal, and it is a fundamental betrayal of every value this company stands for. I have terminated your employment effective immediately for gross misconduct and creating a hostile work environment. I will be personally following up with every member of the staff to ensure I have a full picture of your behavior, and I will be working with Maria and our legal team to ensure every protection is in place for her." I looked past him, scanning the room. The servers, the hosts, even the kitchen staff were peering out, and they all looked completely stunned. Then slowly, a few started nodding. Victor, now just a cornered rat, made one last pathetic attempt. He lunged toward me, trying to grab my arm. "You can't do this! I'll sue you for wrongful termination. You don't have proof." I took a step back and my voice boomed across the silent room. "Oh, I have proof, Victor. And even if I didn't, I have moral certainty. This restaurant is a family, not your personal hunting ground. Get your belongings and leave, now. If you take one step towards any of my employees, I will have you removed by the police. Consider this your final warning, you miserable excuse for a manager." The sheer force of my conviction, combined with the sudden revelation of who I was, completely broke him. He simply crumpled, grabbed his coat from the nearby coat rack, and practically ran out the service entrance without another word, without even looking back. The aftermath was like a storm passing. There was this intense, buzzing silence for a moment, and then a ripple of applause started in the kitchen, led by the busser I had helped earlier. And it quickly spread through the servers, and even the customers. It was unbelievable. I felt this huge release of tension, but the job wasn't done. I immediately called my chief operating officer, and my both into the private dining room, and had a three-way conference call. I explained the situation in detail, told them I had terminated Victor on the spot, and that they had to immediately fly down and begin a full, comprehensive internal investigation of his tenure, and a complete cultural audit of the Copper Kettle. I stressed that if Maria was to be personally compensated for any lost wages, given a foam-protected role with a raise, and provided access to our company's mental health resources. I then walked back to the kitchen, found Maria, and told her everything I had done, personally apologizing for letting a person like Victor manage her. She didn't say much, just a quiet, "Thank you, Mr. Sterling," but the look in her eyes, the genuine, raw relief, was my only reward. I stayed for the rest of the night, not as the CEO, but as an extra pair of hands, helping the listening to them, just being present. I heard so many other small stories of Victor's petty tyranny, and I knew I had done the right thing. The next morning, I officially announced a company-wide policy change, mandating that all executives, including myself, spend a full workweek on the floor every quarter, bussing, serving, and cooking. We call it the Ground Up Initiative, and it's mandatory. No more corner office complacency. Maria is now the assistant general manager and is thriving. The Copper Kettle is doing better than ever. The lesson here for me was that you can never let the spreadsheets and the corporate distance blind you to the human reality of your business. The integrity of your company is built on the dignity of your lowest paid employee. I was an undercover CEO who found more than a broken hinge. I found a broken heart and a broken system that I had to fix. So, I walked in, saw a waitress in tears, and walked out having fired a manager and fundamentally changing my company's culture. I'd love to hear your final, unfiltered thoughts on this whole mess. Let me know if you think I handled the confrontation correctly, or if there was a better way to do it. Like this video if you were on my side and think that sometimes, you just have to drop the hammer immediately. Subscribe for more deeply personal and absolutely shocking true stories like this one. Because believe me, my Ground Up initiative is already finding more things I need to fix. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.